Previously on the Game On podcast.
If you talk about cherry on top, yeah, it was a nice surprise, and I wasn't going to give it back. I can tell you that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was just nice to have, I suppose.
So who was driving standards at that stage at the Norwood Footy Club? Obviously, Bass was there. Any players that stand out?
Yeah, of course.
Drove a lot of standards?
Yeah, so I always think, like, 2010, Freddie coached us, and, like, he coached us hard, and because the whole way we played was totally different. Even the way we trained. I remember walking off the track thinking, I've only touched the ball 10 times, and I was, like, knackered, and we trained for about an hour and 10 minutes, hour and a half, but it was all defensive strategies, where you're going to be, setups and all that. So it was all... everything had sort of been changed and flipped around. So he really drove, the standards and everything. And then as the years went on, by 2012, 2013, he was taking more of a backward step, and it was the players that were actually driving the standards. Freddie was also involved, but there was more involvement with the players, telling people what to do, where they should be, why aren't you there?
Yeah,
you got to do that type stuff. And people like Matty Suckling, he's probably the first person that comes to mind. He was, from day dot, as soon as he walked in, he was very instrumental with his voice and the way he, just his persona. I actually used to stop and reflect myself, going, I'm the experienced one here. I probably should be a little bit more like himself. Why aren't I driving these standards like him? So, it made me reflect on myself.
He had a pretty authoritative personality, and then Gags was obviously the other one as well. Gags with Muff with the other couple there.
As I said, we had our older heads, like probably myself, Gags, Muff, Benny Warren. We were all that 30 years old sort of ones, and then we had sort of like the next group, which was like your Jace Bode, Suckers, Giorgio, Ben Jeffries, Tim Webber, all that group. So we sort of had, the older heads, but I would say that Suckers and Bodie were very vocal. It was more Gags, myself, Muffa had to tell them, hey, cool the jets a bit, or, maybe steer them in the right way, because they probably sometimes, I'm not saying overstepped the line, but they definitely, were boisterous in their ways.
Sportscast SA presents Game On. Game On. South Australians' destination for everything sports. Local, national, and international sports. AFL football, soccer, basketball, golf, baseball, tennis, cricket, and any other sports played in this wide world. And we're going to have a blast doing it. So sit back, relax, and let's do this thing. Welcome to Game On.
Welcome to Game On. My name's Pete, once again joined by Malcolm, and that was Brett Zorzi last week. We brought him into the conversation just before he was talking about his Jackaroos medal, but it was interesting to hear that that Bass really allowed the players to drive the standards during those premiership years, which I think is the sign of a really good coach.
Yeah, Bass then, it was a combination then where Kieran McGuinness, Gags, the senior Jace Bode, the senior list grabbed that. Benny Warren grabbed that
opportunity.
Group. Yep. And it was a pretty special time, obviously, 12, 13 and 14. It was fantastic turning up at games, pretty relaxed. I admit the 12 grand final, I reckon I started celebrating at about 11 o'clock in the morning. I thought we were an absolute certainty. So
absolutely. Yeah. But he did say there's no easy grand final, but I can understand why when, West Adelaide had played a little bit defensive, and it played into Bass's hands a little bit, didn't it?
Yes, we may have had a few jokes amongst us. We're trying to say if Westies played us 100 times, whether we would have won 99 or 100 playing that way. So
You never know.
It was crazy.
Thank you to Brett Zorzy last week for giving us his time and telling us all about those fantastic years at the Norwood Footy Club. But losing 5 games in 2 years was a pretty special time, wasn't it?
Very much so.
All right.
Around the grounds.
All right, on Around the Grounds today, we're going to have a look at the soccer. Adelaide United, once again, doing a pretty fair effort. The SANFL W results from the weekend. We'll have a look at the rugby, a bit of an update there. But, mate, let's start off with round 4 in the AFL. Before we kick into that, it's Gather Round here in SA.
Fantastic.
Isn't it?
It's huge over here. And, look, I admit I've got angry with some Victorian reactions saying, the Collingwood St Kilda game should be changed to the G. We get a bigger crowd. And I'm thinking, you fools, the game wouldn't be happening. I said, go enjoy the game by yourself, because guess what? There's not a footy game happening. Mm-hmm. It's an extra round. How people can't understand that. And Gather Round, there's 10 teams in Victoria, which is ridiculous in a national competition. So they have Gather Round every week over there.
Yep.
It's crazy. So it is fantastic. Great initiative. Fantastic by Peter Malcom and the South Australian government to make sure they got it. Huge tick. And, yeah, it's electric atmosphere over here. Like you said, you went and had a look at Carlton.
Yep.
Couldn't believe the number of people at Armley.
It was almost like an SANFL game where the people were up in the stands, around the ground, absolutely enjoying the festivities. And this is only 2 days or a day before the Adelaide Carlton game on Thursday night.
They've sold 200,000 tickets. That's actually 200,000, quite a reasonable overall crowd for an AFL round.
Yes,
and it's just huge. And how people can't still haven't embraced it. People complain, Collingwood, we've had 2 games in a row. We've had to travel. Well, hello, welcome to the real world.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that Peter Malcom made mention in one of his press conferences today that how good would it be if we get a bigger crowd at the Adelaide Oval for a Sydney Richmond game versus a SCG crowd as well. Just little things like that. GWS played the Crows in round 1. I think it was about 9,800 people. You're probably going to get that or equivalent either at Norwood Oval or up at Mount Barker. So I think, if you think back to the pandemic where we were having to watch a lot of these games, midweek in different states, 2 games back-to-back, et cetera, it's almost an adaptation of that, isn't it?
And there's people coming from everywhere, and there's a lot of people going who don't normally go. It's not just that traditional... Yes. Like the season tickets are a huge part of Crows, especially slightly less with Port, but it's still the majority of the crowd. With it,
they opened it up to everybody.
Yeah, it's just anyone and everyone. Yep. It's great. So I'm looking forward to the couple of games at the home of football. So the James Aish homecoming game
at the parade,
parade with that, and then we've got Hawthorn and GWS as well. So really looking forward to it.
What are you going to be heading off to any games? Have you got?
I'm involved in those 2 games.
Those 2 games at Norwood Oval.
Yep.
I was lucky enough to get a ticket to the Adelaide Carlton game tomorrow night. So, or Thursday night. I'm really looking forward to that, and I probably wouldn't have been able to get a ticket to that game if it was just a normal season ticketed game. And I like the idea of a game at Mount Barker, even up at the Barossa or somewhere down.
I think the Barossa was. People don't realise in terms of how big the broadcasting side of it is.
Yes.
Like, good luck getting in Wood Street from tomorrow onwards, and it's just huge. And there's a lot more things, and we'll probably try and get Baz Solomon on in the week or 2 afterwards, and just to talk about how many things have happened at Nord to get the game on. People have no idea how many things are going on.
The checklist would have been huge, and it would have started months ago. Yeah. I did see some photos of them obviously preparing the ground over the last couple of days, but, the Wood Street there has already been blocked off, and a lot of that broadcast gear has been put into play, but I'm sure there's a ton more that's still going to go in the next couple of days. So it's mind-boggling, but it's great for SA footy. And You made mention earlier that, Sturt were holding practice sessions. Obviously, most of the SANFL grounds are. But how good is it for a local youngster to say, not only can we go to our local SANFL ground around the corner and watch these guys practice, even if it's for a 45-minute captain's run or a light run, they get to see these guys in the flesh, which they don't get up close with on a regular basis.
I think there's kids coaching clinics it's between 4,000 and 5,000 kids over this next week. You've also got the big screens up in Elder Park, the zip flying flying
Festival
fox
of
sort
footy,
of thing over the
Elder Park.
Torrens. And it's incredible. And there's one thing with South Australia. When we do something, we do it well.
We don't go in half-assed, do we? That was probably my next point that I was going to talk about with the gather round. That I think we've turned it on, and there is some talk about other states already going, we want it next year. Is it going to be a case of that you give a state maybe a couple of years run at it and then maybe move it on?
That's the mail.
Yeah.
The mail is around that the AFL are blown away by what's happening in South Australia this weekend, that it is likely to be in South Australia next year.
Yeah, so maybe a couple of years at a time and then maybe move it on.
That seems to be the thought process.
And I'd be quite happy either way. I mean, really, at the end of the day, footy is going to be the winner. And, if it does end up at the Gold Coast for a couple of weeks in June or whenever it is, or over to Perth for a week or two, you're not exactly going to be too displeased, that's for sure.
Yeah, and, there's also Fremantle are training at Norwood tomorrow morning.
I think Gold Coast were there tonight.
Yeah. Yep. Sydney are training at St Peter's College, a.k.a. Hackney High School.
Yes.
Geez, they hate that. So it'll be the homecoming for Dylan Stevens and Will Haywood back to their stomping ground. Of course, it is obviously organised by
Tommy Harley.
Tom Harley, former student at Hackney High and Loretto College as well. We'll worry about that another time.
Yep. So, and I think Richmond are down at Glenelg. Somebody's out at North Adelaide. Melbourne are out at North Adelaide, home ground.
Yeah, so
it's
great.
Just fantastic, isn't it? Yeah. And I think from that point of view, it couldn't have been done any better.
No, it's fantastic.
The SANFL facilities that we talked about with Brett Zorzy last week versus some of the VFL facilities, I think the players would actually be blown away that at a local league level, and again, we don't want to call it local because we don't want to do it a disservice, but at a SANFL level, it's fantastic that they get to see those facilities up front.
Oh, look, and the word will get around amongst the players back there, the fringe. Hey, if you're going to go over the ground, geez, that oval at Norwood's pretty specky. That's, and training at Unley tonight.
Just done there.
The development at Unley, you're going to look up, geez, that's a bit better than what we've got at VFL level. So it's not going to hurt South Australian recruiting-wise.
I think North Adelaide have also done a bit of a revamp as well. So
there's all things happening.
There's all things happening, and South Adelaide obviously started their ground a few years ago and have just been slowly adding on, and Glenelg are in the same boat. So, every SANFL club's got plenty of upside for potential players.
Definitely.
All right, mate, we'll cover that a little bit later when we go through our tips for the round, but let's talk about round 4. Any surprises from round 4 for you?
No, maybe Port against Sydney, but Port's record against Sydney is very well, is fantastic, and wasn't that incredible? The last couple of minutes, it was the Keystone Cops errors of under 10s. You had Dixon giving away that 50. You then had Port's setup for the kick in was bizarre. Yes. And I don't understand why Bass doesn't get more say over things there, because I know the Nord setups under Bass, they would have been far better than that. Mm-hmm. So some weird things there. Then, of course, the premature celebration.
Well, I was going to get to that.
It was bizarre.
I sat on the lounge watching it with my jaw on the ground thinking, well, he's going to kick this. And off the boot, it looked brilliant. I did hear Travis Boak talk about it either on radio, it might have been on AFL 360 last night through Fox, saying that he was standing at the top of the square and he thought that it was going through as well. And then there was the wind that had been sort of wreaking havoc down that end most of the night, and all of a sudden that ball almost just stopped in the air, which was absolutely crazy. and then the premature celebration and not
So
the
they weren't
shepherding.
Yeah.
It just sort of left your head scratching.
It would have been interesting too, though, if you actually see it. Buddy pushes a
Yes.
Port player right in the middle of the back. What the umpire would have done.
Yes.
Whether he'd got in the right spot, I'm not sure. I doubt it.
Yep.
Whether he would have had the courage to pay it, but you can pay that free kick because obviously it's still an active play. It doesn't matter the siren's gone. He's kicking for goal after siren. So yes, the free kick could have been paid for the blatant push in the back.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
From a Sydney point of view, let's go back to Sydney a little bit. Can they train for that? Or is that just a common sense that all your big guys are on the line and they're absolutely trying like anything to shepherd it through?
As I said, you had 3 errors in the last 2 minutes, which shouldn't happen at kids' footy, let alone at the league.
Yep.
It was quite bizarre.
It was. And then both teams celebrating and not really knowing what was going on. It was just one of those moments that I think we're going to look back over the year and go, how did that happen and why did that happen? Mate, my other big surprise was probably the Easter Monday game with Geelong and Hawthorn. Not for the result. We sort of thought that Geelong were going to win. But, gee, that third quarter was absolutely blistering.
Well, 15 goals. It was 15 goals to 1 after half time.
Yeah,
no,
and 10 goals in that third quarter.
To nothing. That's more. That's your normal country or amateur league game where one team dominates.
That was probably the surprise for me,
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Look, probably Brisbane winning against Collingwood wasn't a surprise with Brisbane's record up there. Adelaide here were always a good chance against Freo. Western Bulldogs maybe a little bit against Richmond, but that was still an iffy game.
My other one is probably St Kilda, and we've sort of said we half rate St Kilda because they're playing well, but the injuries are what's going to cause them, and they continue to prove us wrong.
I think they've got a few guys now that we're starting to notice. Chico, however you pronounce his first name, hopefully he's just going to be Mitch Owens to make it easier. But I saw his highlights tape. If anyone just wants to click on and see his highlights tape of last weekend, it is wow.
Yep.
It's a couple of minutes and it's bloody special.
Matthias Filippo is another one again, and I want to talk about this a little bit with some of the players that the Crows have introduced this year and last year a little bit as well, and obviously North Melbourne with Sheasel. These guys are coming in as a young recruit, ready and raring to go. And
I'm wrapped for Matthias. I got a bit angry when people say there was a few accusations of him as a big head, where the kid's not. He's just confident in his own ability. He's a ripper kid. And justifiably, Sam and the Peter and all that should be
absolutely should be chuffed.
My things with him, I've met him a few times. Couldn't say he's been more polite, and I rate him. I think he's a great kid, and he's first 4 rounds he's been very, very good.
You look at North Melbourne with Harry Sheasel.
He's been great.
You look at Nick Dacos from Collingwood. You look at Rochelle from the Crows. I did a little bit of fact checking on Rochelle a little bit today because later on in our Happy Birthday segment, it's his birthday this week. He's almost blowing his 2022 numbers out of the water in the first 4 or 5 games, which is just a really good progression for the young lad.
And Saligo's got a bit tougher as well.
Exactly right. So, whereas Port were there 2 years ago with Dersma and Butters and Rosie. So it's just interesting to see that teams that are giving these young guys great opportunity are reaping the rewards.
Yep. Good point.
All right, let's move on to this round, the gather round here in Adelaide. Now, in previous weeks, we've had to pick some teams based upon home ground advantage. It's going to be an interesting one this week when it comes to a few of the toss-up games. So, we've got Thursday night, Adelaide v Carlton, a bit of a blockbuster, really, that it's turned into.
It is a toss-the-coin job. Carlton's record here is obviously poor. There's none for 6. As a Redback supporter, I'd love to be none for 6.
Absolutely.
But,
the head-to-head
2 or 3 for by then. But
the head-to-head betting's pretty close as well, which is quite interesting. And again, gamble responsibly. But I think both teams are in some reasonable form. I don't think Carlton are going to be easy to push over, and I don't think Adelaide are going to be in the same boat either.
It should be a good game. Walsh is a big in. Let's not forget how good he is. And guys normally are pretty good first up. It might be second or third up once their
They're a
body's
little bit flat.
received a bit, but normally first up. And I expect him to come out and have a pretty big thing. I think Kennedy's a big in for him as well.
Yep. And obviously McKay with the
getting
potential
off.
suspension at tribunal.
I thought he was a tad lucky.
Bit of a
it was just dumb.
Wording technicality, but it was
what he did was dumb.
Yeah.
I don't mind if he gets a game for get a game for being stupid. Like this in terms, just don't do something dumb and get yourself up there like it was. It was he's a little bit lucky in the end because the gradings. It's a toss of the coin.
Absolutely. Hit him in the shoulder. It slipped up to the head. Okay. Fogarty tonight has been named for the Crows, which I think was an interesting in. I thought they might give him one more week.
No, he's trained.
But I think he's trained pretty
a
well.
Fair bit. No, I'm not happy personally that McHenry's been dropped. As far as I'm concerned, I think he's an important part of Adelaide's rebuild.
I would have had him in instead of Murphy.
Yep,
I agree on that one. How does that work then with Thilthorpe?
Oh, look, he'll play a bit of everywhere. Thilthorpe will.
So will he take, say, that second ruck role?
Yeah, he will as well. And he'll probably
because Tex is rucking in the forward lines and is doing it reasonably well. So you probably wouldn't change that. So is he that more mobile ruckman around the ground?
He's incredible mobile. Like I don't think there'd be anything wrong with throwing him to a wing. He's that mobile.
Yep.
As something, okay, probably not a night game because it's going to be too dewy and that sort of thing.
It could be a touch damp.
He's got I think he can go a bit of everywhere.
Okay, so there's a little bit of flexibility there.
I think so.
All right, and then that obviously puts Fogarty back into the forward line with Walker, and then
I think Fogarty just basically takes Gallant's spot. So I don't really see too much being too different there.
Okay, excellent. So who are we going for that one, the Crows or Carlton?
I'll go. I think Carlton's ins. I'll go for Carlton. So
I'm going to have to go the Blues myself as well. All right, we move on to the first game at Norwood Oval, 4:40 Friday afternoon. Freo v the Gold Coast Suns.
I'll go for the James Aish homecoming. Keep his record intact. Yet to play in a losing league game at Norwood Oval. Look, James H, let's quickly. 24 games for Norwood, 23 wins, 2 flags, 1 loss. That's ridiculous stats. And he gets to have a kick and a catch at the parade. The H family,
be super proud.
As famous as any family at Norwood, obviously. Yep. So, yeah.
The punters are backing Freo to make up for last week. I think most of them actually stayed here in Adelaide for the week. So, so that's a good thing. Again, don't discount the Gold Coast Suns, but playing at Norwood Oval, I just think that the smaller boutique ground may just catch a few out. Yeah,
and Jared Witt is expected not to come up still for Gold Coast. So I think that's a pretty big out for them.
Absolutely. And the second game on Friday night is Richmond v Sydney.
Real toss the coin.
Yeah.
Cost the coin. A lot of injuries at Richmond, obviously, with Lynch and Nankervis both out for a considerable time. Sydney, who were far from convincing last week.
Well, do you think, just going back to that, and I know we're talking about this week's games, but do you think that Sydney played Port wrong by almost going to where Alir was most of the time?
A little bit.
Because it is a smaller ground, it does make it a little bit easier for him to be in the right spots at the right time.
I think Sydney have made a mistake that Buddy's gone 1 year too long. But they also lost both McCartans, so let's not remember.
I think if they hadn't have lost that, I reckon they probably would have won. I agree. So do Sydney come up? Again, you're right, it is a toss of the coin. So Sydney v Richmond. Richmond haven't been travelling massively well.
I want to see both sides to see how they both come up. At this stage, head says Richmond, tail says Sydney.
The coin has been flipped.
I'll go for it's landed on a head. I'll go Richmond.
All right, Richmond it is. I got a feeling that Richmond might come out and have a blinder. So I think Sydney, just a couple of injuries down back, really leaves them a bit more vulnerable than what they would like to be.
And Gould and Francis both failed fitness tests, so even who they were expected to, at least one of those two were playing.
Yep.
So Warner's brother coming out. So, yeah, it's a bit of a
wait and see on that one.
makeshift there as well.
Absolutely. All right, we move on to Saturday up in the Adelaide Hills at Mount Barker. Brisbane v North Melbourne.
Got to go for Brisbane.
I think Brisbane are going to come to town and look to enjoy their time up in the Adelaide Hills.
But wouldn't you be absolutely hammering it if you were Clarkson, which I'm sure he will? They've travelled twice this year, got whipped by Port, and lost to Western Bulldogs. So 2 away games, boys, 2 losses. This mob don't like travelling. You can almost hear Clarko going right into it. So
it might be a little chilly up in the Mount Barker region.
Meant to be a tad wet.
Do you reckon that he might take the shirt off and do a lap again like he did a couple of years ago at Hawthorn and just say, hey, boys, it's not that cold up here. We can handle this. Does the wet weather then sort of bring North Melbourne into it a little bit?
I think so.
Yeah.
So, I think most of us will tip Brisbane, but
it's not a foregone conclusion.
No, not at all.
All right, then we move on to the Saturday afternoon game at Adelaide Oval. Essendon v Melbourne. This is going to be a good hit out.
Yeah, I'll go
again,
the D's.
I'm going to go Melbourne as well.
Yep.
I just think they're building quite well.
Yep.
Yes, they were playing a depleted West Coast last week, but I think they're just starting to get things right. And still no Gawn and doing what they're doing, which is mighty impressive. And then the big one, Saturday night, Port Adelaide v the Bulldogs.
Again, a toss the coin job. This case, I'll go the home side.
I think the Bullies are going to cause an upset here.
Oh, don't worry, I'll be barracking for the Bulldogs, but yeah.
All right, I'm going to pick the Bulldogs on that one. You're going to pick Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
I just think they're going to come to town to play.
Hope so.
Again, wet weather might actually change that a little bit, so we're doing this on a Wednesday night, so we'll see how we go. All right, and then Sunday, Adelaide Oval, early game, Geelong v the West Coast.
Geelong.
You'd have to say Geelong as well. West Coast are still...
I wouldn't tip West Coast in an internal.
They're just struggling to put, but they found some young ones as well. So, and they were pretty competitive for Melbourne for a quarter and a bit last week. But yeah, unfortunately, they're going to fall by the wayside a little bit. Second game at Norwood Oval, GWS v Hawthorn.
I'll go GWS.
I'll go GWS as well. And then to finish us off on Sunday twilight, we've got Collingwood v St Kilda. This is going to be
it should be a good game.
Belter of a game.
Yeah, look, again, we're all underestimating St Kilda. I'll go Collingwood, but
again, it's a toss of the coin, isn't it?
So it's a great round at the home of football in South Australia.
I had some banter with a couple of mates of mine that we're going to the Carlton-Adelaide game tomorrow night or Thursday night, and I did say that Carlton would beat the Crows and Collingwood would beat St Kilda, and that'd put Carlton top. So I've got a little bit riding on it. So I'm gonna back Collingwood as well. I just think Collingwood at the moment, they're building quite nicely. A couple of injuries again, just hurting a few sides.
Their lack of ruck stocks, but they actually had more scoring shots than Brisbane last week. They wasted the ball a bit. So.
And St Kilda are getting a couple back,
but
they're not sort of saying that these guys are going to be rushed straight in because the team's actually doing quite well. And Ross has brought a different element to the St Kilda at the moment.
We've got to wait and see on the weather. A couple of people carrying on about Adelaide Oval. Hey, there's one thing about Adelaide Oval. Unless it's raining during that game, the drainage is that good.
Yep, you won't even
Don't worry about Adelaide Oval.
Absolutely. You probably will get more water out on the lawns out the front of the Adelaide Oval than you will actually on the Oval itself. All right, mate, we have a look at SANFL game round 2. We'll move on. Sturt touching up the legs at the parade on Thursday night.
Yeah, we're just way too good. Really just a mile too good. I thought Nord's side pick was poor. Nord were way too tall. And Sturt, to their credit, they're smalls. Stephen Slimman, kick 5, superbly coached at Sapsarza level. So it was good to Slimo and mucking around with him a bit after the game. By pure fluke, as I walked across, he was being interviewed. So I reminded him of how well he was coached as a junior. So
I think
Sturt were good.
As far as my power rankings go, I think we talked about the Eagles and potentially North Adelaide being the top 2, but I think Sturt now has to be in that conversation.
No doubt about that.
Adelaide defeating the West Adelaide side.
Yeah,
Not surprising.
Did what they had to. They were down early, but you always thought they may well run over them, and that's exactly what happened.
The surprise of the round was Central's beating North Adelaide.
Yeah, that was a big upset.
I had to look that twice and refresh the screen twice on that one to make sure I was looking at the right round and the right game, and it was. South Adelaide were mighty impressive. I did get to watch some of that game on TV. South Adelaide were mighty impressive against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Again, it was at Flinders University Stadium, so give the home side a bit of an advantage there. And Glenelg beat Port Adelaide.
Yeah, it did what they had to. It was close. I think the scores were tied away at three-quarter time, but then Glenelg kicked the last 3 goals of the game.
Yep.
So, yep.
All right, and we move on to round 3, which will be next week.
Yeah,
because...
Yeah.
Obviously, this
we
week
can probably
we'll leave that one for tonight, and we'll cover that one next week. We'll move on to the soccer, mate. Australia in the ladies, they beat England 2-0 this morning.
Fantastic result. England's first loss, I think, in 30 games, the ladies' side, and Sam Kerr.
Is she now in the conversation?
Oh, definitely in the conversation.
For the best Socceroo representative for Australia.
Big time.
Again, we take the male, the female side of it out. We're just looking at the player and her accomplishments. Is she in that conversation?
Oh, very much so.
We talk about the Mount Rushmore of soccer players. Is she in those top 4 for Australia? I think she is.
Yeah, I think she is. I think it's Tim Cahill versus Sam Kerr. Yeah, Viduka... around the mark. I think his Leeds teammate
Harry Kuehl.
A few others of more recent times. But for what she's doing and her,
and it's consistent though. That's the
all the time.
Yep.
She seems to score every time Chelsea have a big game. She seems to score
big. Yep.
So look.
For consistency, she's up there. There's
time.
Very rarely a bad game.
Yep. No.
I have to put her in my conversation because I think that she is not only revolutionising women's sport, but I think that she's showing that anybody at any level can do the job, and obviously for Australia it's fantastic.
You and I are very much on the same page there.
All right, no arguments, no rulebook rants tonight on that one.
Not that one.
All right, mate, we're going to take a quick break. We've covered quite a bit in the first segment. We're going to breeze through the second and third segments as quickly as we can.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break.
We'll continue with soccer. Adelaide United still doing the job. Yeah, it was 1-1 against Sydney FC.
Yeah, they had two shots cleared off the line in the first half where really they should have scored on both. One of them, I think, trying to remember, it was Goodwin, was just probably a little bit too cute. Instead of just kicking the goal, try to place it and just could have hit it hard and it was going to be a goal. So, probably couple there, and then scored the goal, but Sydney equalised late. So a little bit disappointing, but they were due, and it was still a good result.
Absolutely,
to get the point.
Still keeps Adelaide United in second spot. Doesn't really change anything. Adelaide playing Western United here on Sunday, 4:30.
Sure, that'll be a great thing for them to compete against what else is happening in Adelaide this round.
Again, you would have hoped to have scheduled that one either away or
I think it should have been
or at a later time slot. Maybe that players could have watched the footy and maybe gone. But again, not every team's going to be at the St Kilda Collingwood game on the
and not everyone's following AFL, but it probably would have made sense to have them as an away game. But well,
that's okay. The more people here, you never know. There might be some AFL supporters who have actually come for a Saturday game and going, well, I'll stay for the Adelaide United on a Sunday. So, catch 22 there, and hopefully they fill Cooper Stadium there.
Exactly.
All right, SANFL results for round
SANFL
7.
W.
SANFL W. The Panthers defeat the Eagles.
Yeah, it was closer than what we all expected.
10-8.
Yeah.
1 goal 2 to 1 goal 4.
Wet and playing at Noarlunga, big ground for ladies footy. Not a great scoreline on paper,
No.
but yeah.
South Adelaide did what they needed to do. Sturt, I think they did well across all the grades on the weekend. Sturt defeating North Adelaide there 40-26.
And Indy Rashid getting Sturt's best player, of course, daughter of Roger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you can expect her to go very high up in the draft when she becomes eligible in the next year or so.
Absolutely. Norwood defeating the Tigers.
Yeah, Glenelg have fallen away a little bit. I think injuries have caught
Wasn't
up.
there a couple of knee injuries after round 2?
Yeah, that was the game I'd commentated the earlier game, and yeah, two players did it in 5 minutes, and they'd had one the week before. So I think the troop numbers have caught up a bit there.
And understandable. And Norwood obviously getting on a little bit of a run at the moment.
Yeah, look, where Norwood were on the premiership table probably wasn't a real reflection. There's 7 points combined losing margin for their first three rounds. So probably not as big a surprise. And Norwood have got a little bit of depth there where it'll be Norwood versus South Adelaide, and the game is at Norwood in the grand final in the Development League. Next weekend. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
And just to finish out the SANFL W there, the Bulldogs had a huge win against West Adelaide.
Yeah.
Bit of a surprise, that was.
Probably more the margin, not the result, but the margin. And, under Ben Hunt, the Bulldogs girls are going well.
They're up and about at the moment. 10-10 to 2-4. So, and that was obviously at West Adelaide. Very interesting that all the away teams actually beat all the home sides.
Yeah.
Which was
doesn't
happen very often at all. All right, mate, we move on very, very quickly to the NRL table. Some upcoming matches this weekend. We've got the Dolphins and the Rabbitohs, the Sharks and the Roosters, the Seagulls and the Storm, Warriors, Cowboys, Knights, Panthers, Titans, Broncos, Raiders, Dragons, and the Eels and the Bulldogs. My big one is probably, bless you, my big one is probably the Dolphins and the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, the Dolphins,
new franchise. The Rabbitohs, I have a bit of a soft spot for the Rabbitohs because of obviously their history and how they were sort of taken out of the competition and fought their way back in. So I have a little bit of a soft spot for them. And that one's tomorrow night. I'm actually looking forward to catching up on some of the results on that one there.
Yeah.
And as far as the table goes, the Broncos sitting top, Panthers second, Storm third, Dolphins fourth. So a win last weekend has brought them back up again. Warriors, Titans, Roosters, Knights, and the Seagulls. The Knights rounding out the top 8.
Yep.
Seagulls, Rabbitohs, and the Sharks 9, 10, and 11, but only some point difference, 1 or 2 points between them. So it's going to be a very interesting round ahead for the NRL.
Yeah, I'm enjoying following the Dolphins fairy tale. You know, I'm not a huge NRL man. No. I admit that. But enjoying following how they're going.
I do keep an eye on the NRL a little bit. 1 for the Rabbitohs. 2 this year for the Dolphins. But 3, I actually, and a lot of people will go, you're crazy because you're from Adelaide, but the Melbourne Storm and how successful they have been for a non-traditional football state, I think and Craig Bellamy as well from a coaching point of view, just a fascinating case study of how you can make a team in a non-traditional market work.
In that, they're not a traditional rugby state, as you said.
Correct.
And they have been.
It's just a fascinating study.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
So definitely keep an eye on those ones there. All right, mate, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, very, very special guest, a last-minute recruit for our past players, past legends, Roger Woodcock.
Yeah, we're apt to have Woody around. Look, there are a few people, and I'm getting messages, too much Nord and all that. It's actually ironic. I've lined up people, a couple others lately, and then for various reasons, they've had to pull out, and obviously that's maybe will be my main contacts. Falls back that way. So,
that's okay.
You're listening to the Game On Podcast. We'll be right back after this short break. Past players, past legends. Past legends.
Welcome aboard. We have privilege to have Roger Woodcock on our show tonight. Woody, the casual, 267 games, 602 goals, highest non-goal scoring, non-full forward in South Australian history. Welcome aboard, Woody.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
Thanks for joining us, mate. We'll start off. Where did you start playing your juniors? With a school footy or for a junior footy club?
No, I never played for a junior footy club. I basically played for Norwood High School right through my junior footy, and probably when I was doing leaving, I had a few games with the under-17s. It was back then, and then I think I just played the one sort of half a dozen games, and then the following year I went into under-19s because back then they had it was called Colts and the thirds. So I had 2 years of under-19 footy before I, at the end of that season, my second season in under-19s, I went up to the reserves and then the league for the last couple of games.
Who did you debut against?
Sorry, what was that?
Who did you debut against for your first league game?
My first league game was at the last two league games of '69, and I debuted against West Adelaide. And I remember I was a skinny little 19-year-old, and there was a bloke coming back. I can't remember his first name, but he was a big mountain of a man, Hewitt, and he was coming back from about 3 weeks suspension from belting a guy. So that was a good intro.
Oh, wow.
Now, you debuted the same day as your great mate, the late Glenn Rosso?
Yeah, we did. We were both playing under-19s, and as you know, Glenn was from Port Elliot, and staying at Carmel Court in the country. Sort of boys are all staying there. So Glenn and I were playing thirds together, and then we unexpectedly got promoted to reserves, and then even more unexpectedly got promoted for the league side the last two games. So yeah, Glenn and I started off together.
We've had some great players come out of Norwood High too, Pete.
Absolutely.
Roger Woodcock, Neil Craig, Jim Teal, Danny Jenkins, Greg Turnbull, David Palm, Malcolm Ashwood. So, yeah, there are some.
Definitely.
You were waiting for that, weren't you, Woody?
Yeah, no, there was some good breeding ground. And as you'd expect, the Norwood High School, quite close to the Norwood Oval, Norwood District. So, not even before, in the 50s and 60s, there were some wonderful players that had come out of there for sure. It was a great breeding ground. And as you know, school footy back then was very, very strong, very strong.
We still got to get around you, me and Bruce Winter with picking that best Norwood High side. We still haven't done yet, Woody. So then you debuted under obviously Robert Odie. Robert Odie's effect on you and his emphasis on the skills.
Yeah, look, he was an absolutely fantastic coach and probably ahead of his time. Some of our skill training under Robert was just fantastic. I was only used to sort of doing a bit of circle work, like we all were, doing that, a few run-throughs, but some of the skill work that Robert had for us was just fantastic, and he quickly developed skills of a lot of us young guys. And I think, that was the forerunner to sort of, a couple of premierships I was lucky enough to play in the 70s, but Robert was instrumental in he was a teacher by trade. He was a teacher of football skills, and no doubt about that, he was a fantastic coach. I got a lot out of him, a lot of respect for RO for sure. He certainly the reason I began there at Norwood. What
was your first thoughts when a certain Phil Carman arrived on the scene, Woody?
For starters, couldn't believe how fit an individual could be. He was just unbelievably fit, and we thought we were, reasonably fit, but he was twice as fit as us. He used to just run everywhere, every day. We just run when we had to, when we go out to training. But where he was staying up in the Carmel Court, and I think that helped the Carmel Court boys too, because they all went out running with him, and Craigie especially, and those sort of guys. And I think even Winnie used to go out running with him for probably about half a K, and then he gave up. It was too hard.
He
was amazing. And as far as his footy ability, I still think, probably I think he's probably one of the best footballers I've seen, just his natural ability. But, as we all know, his temperament probably waned a bit. Put it this way, if he had a temperament like a Barry Robin or a Russell Leonard, he would have been right up there with them.
Well, that's always been my thoughts, Woody. I've always said Phil Carman is the only player I consider the equal of Barry Robin re-pure ability, but unfortunately White Line Fever ruined that. I've always had that opinion.
Yeah. And looking back, I think he'd probably be a little bit disappointed with his whole career overall with what he did. He should have, with his fitness level and all that sort of gear, he should have been a 300-plus game player with all the accolades coming towards him. But unfortunately, I think his temperament just got the better of him, and he just couldn't help himself at times and got himself into a lot of strife, unfortunately.
That Carmel Court crew that you talk about there, we've had Winnie talk about the names that came out of there. Did that help you guys, obviously being the locals and helping the country guys out through Carmel Court there? Did it sort of create a bond that is unbreakable at stages?
Well, it certainly created a bond with all the country boys, and no doubt about that. And maybe some of us city boys might have got a bit of our nose out of joint, a little bit. But I know Glenn and I have had a bit of a talk about this, many years later, sort of thing. And he felt that there was a little bit of, particularly in the juniors. I don't think it was an issue once you get into senior football. But I think when we were playing under 19s, there was a little bit of, he's from the country and he's getting looked after up in Carmel Court. Yeah. There might have been that bit, but I think once, those guys got into senior football, that was never an issue at all. Never. No, it was a good establishment, and it went for all those years, and certainly brought the best out of all those guys. Yeah, that was terrific. Run by Phil Carman's mother for many years.
Yeah, yep. Annie, and of course, I scored for Kenzie as a kid, Kenzie Cricket Club back then, and it used to be Fabulous Phil, Neil Craig, and Robert Odie training on the hockey oval, and then if there were days when Ross Dillon was playing cricket for Kenzie, more of the guys would be out there. And you're right, it was just amazing. You just have your jaw on the floor watching Carman and Craig, that they were the two fittest footballers in the country, and they were both playing for us. It was incredible.
And don't forget, Craig was probably only about 15 then.
Yes, he was incredible.
He was about 5 years younger than all the other boys staying there, because he came down from York at 14 or 15 years of age. Yeah, pretty amazing.
Phil Carman actually even held athletic records at Pembroke for 30-odd years, and there's always been the comment made with people high up in athletics, we're not talking just an opinion of here and there, that believe that Phil could have medalled in the decathlete as a decathlete. So we'll never know as well.
Yeah, I've no doubt of that, because he could certainly leap and do all those sort of things. Yeah, yep, for sure.
So moving back to your career, mate. Obviously debuted in '69, 1970. How many games did you end up playing?
Oh, I think I played most of them. Probably, at least maybe 20. I don't really know. And then probably 20.
And then obviously by 1971, leading goal kicker, mate, a mercurial left footer.
Yeah, got a few goals that year in 71. That was and Norwood we were just under RO. We were just starting to, take shape, and we had a couple of senior blokes like Winnie and those sort of guys that certainly helped us, and so we were just starting to gradually claw our way up. We'd been bottom, and when RO took over in certainly 68, maybe even 69 when I first began. But then, the next year we just got 1970. I think 71 we drew with Port Adelaide down at Alberton, and that cost us probably fourth spot by about less than a percent, from, if I can remember. Yeah, geez, a long time ago. So and so 72. Then we played in I think a semi-final against Centrals. So we were just starting to move a bit.
And we didn't have much luck in that final against North in 73, where Nigel Walk kicked out on the full and it hit the wall and rebounded straight to Barry Stringer. The free kick against Staz when he was in front for hanging on. As you can see, I don't hold a grudge whatsoever either, would he?
Yeah, and I remember that ball bounced off the wall straight to Barry Stringer, and it should have been, he should have had to go back and take his kick, but for some reason the umpire let it play on, and Stazzers got caught out a bit, and bang, and finally ball went back to centre, bloody siren went, and so we were under a goal. Who knows what would have happened if we played in the grand final, that, and who knows what would have happened
with RO. Yeah.
If we never, what would have happened with RO, because I think the reason came out inability to win a premiership or something like that. I can't remember now, but I thought it was pretty harsh actually. But that certainly caused a ruckus. The sacking of Robert Odie, that's for sure.
And then the arrival of Bob Hammond, mate.
Yeah. Well, a bit chalk and cheese between Robert Odie and Robert Hammond. I mean, Robert, as I said before, was a pure teacher of the football skills, where Bob Hammond was more. He got the best out of us. He knew he had a side that had all the skills, and by that time Ross Dillon had joined us, so there's more experience, and also I think Rodney Pope and Greg Nicholson had joined us.
Yep.
So all of a sudden we've got a few 100-game players in there, and Bob knew that there was plenty of skill there. He just needed to, I think, bring that extra bit out of us, and I think that's what Bob supplied. He brought that extra 10 or 20%, whatever you need to win finals. He certainly brought that out of all of us guys. And I guess my game changed under him. Robert Odie told me I was never to fly for an overhead mark. And so for 5 years, I never did.
Yeah.
He said, your position's on the ground, and all the other big guys, fly for the ball. We use your kicking ability on the ground. And I never used to chase a half-back flanker. If he wanted to wander off, I'd let him go. I'd wait for the turnover, Ash.
Nothing wrong with that, Woody.
Easy one out the back.
But you couldn't do that under Bob Hammond.
No.
If if they had the ball and you didn't defend, you wouldn't last long. So I certainly changed. I went for more marks and all that sort of gear, and I think Bob Hammond developed me into a better player, a more all-round player as far as my defensive side of the game. I didn't have a defensive bone in my body for the first 5 years, but that certainly changed under Bob Hammond.
It actually probably 75. On to 75, and I reckon the prelim final in terms of individual games in Norwood Footy Club's history gets forgotten a little bit, where Greg Turnbull, 6 goals in the 75 against Cunningham and Cale.
Yep.
And best on ground by the length of the Flemington Straight. People just still don't realise it with Turbs either.
Yeah. He was just so courageous, so gutsy. We all know that. But we had some good success against Port in preliminary finals.
Yes.
At the time that I played, there was at least 3, I think we won against them in those years. Yeah, 2 or 3. But that would have hurt them. The old rivalry, Norwood and Port, it's fantastic. Always has been, always will be.
Yeah, I was about to say it's still as strong today as it ever has been.
I think so, yeah. And
it's just different.
The guys that come into the club, whether they're quite new, it doesn't take them long to know the history about what Norwood v Port is all about. That's for sure. So
in that year, you lost your first 2 games, but then went on a bit of a winning streak of 16 games.
Yeah, that was 1975. In fact, Ashley probably knows this. That record probably still exists. The most number of winning games in a row for Norwood, and particularly at Norwood Oval. Mm-hmm. I think that still stands.
Yeah, I think so. It got close under Bass with that, but I think that's still I think it's still in front. I will double check that out. Actually, interestingly, we'll do that.
That's why it's really interesting. We won all those games and including beating the Bays that year. This is 75. My first premiership, and the club's first for, as everyone knows, 25 years. And we were quite, as a group, we were quite astounded that they were absolutely almost raging red hot favourites in the grand final. And we'd beat them during the year. Sure, they smashed us in the second semi, but we still felt confident. We could handle them in the grand final. So I just remember. And I don't know if people will know this, but leading up to the grand final, all the stuff in the paper was all Glenelg.
Yeah,
photos, articles, everything, and that was done for a reason. Bob Hammond and Wally Miller came to and said, right, there will be no interviews. I was asked to go by on Barry Ian's show, with Peter Plus.
Yep.
And on a Friday morning, no, that got ruled out. That got cancelled. So the only staged photo we had was Graham Dunstan sitting in Premier Don Dunstan's chair I think it was a photo Saturday morning of the grand final. That was the only staged publicity shot of that whole week. And so every time you picked up a paper or heard the radio, it was all Glenelg. And I know as a player that was really pissing me off, and that's what it was. That's what it was designed for. We were sort of really, really motivated by Bob Hammond. His the Friday night at his place before the grand final was just fantastic, really good. The way that he motivated us, we were so confident when we ran out. We knew it'd be a tough game, and in the end it was. It was only 9 goals to 7 goals or something.
Nine goals 10 to 7 goals 10. Yep.
Yeah, it was always going to be a tough game with the defence on both sides were pretty good and on top. So it was a dour game, but we just knew we had the commitment to take. And I reckon they might have been a little bit complacent. I heard Cornsey mention that many years later that they might have, just got a bit complacent, a bit ahead of themselves, and maybe that was due to all their publicity they got leading up to that week. It was just a matter of them running out and knocking us over like they did in the second semi.
Yeah, I could never work that out. Okay, Stazza got injured in the prelim, so he was an important out. But we had won 16 in a row, and I'm sitting there going, this is a 50-50 game. And the way it was created, you would have thought that we were bottom and Glenelg were top. It was bizarre how much they were favourites. And okay,
we knew we were a good side.
Oh, bloody oath!
And they were too. Too. So as you said, it's all grand finals. We know they're 50-50, and that's been proven over the journeys. Quite often, the underdog gets up.
Now, Pete, I
reckon we should never have been underdogs that day. Opinion.
Yeah, as I said, I think it should have been a toss of the coin. Now, Pete, there was a very significant happening on that day, on that grand final. Woody kicked one of his 8 right foot goals in the grand final.
Here we go.
Yeah, read it off hands on the right foot. Mind you, Jimmy Lawson's right on my hammer. All I could do was throw it on my right foot. I couldn't do anything else. So I was a bit lucky, but we'll take it. Because there weren't many goals that day.
It's been a bit of a standard joke with Woody that every time I found one of his right foot goals somewhere on YouTube or footy, I'd find it and send it through to Woody, and he'd go, bloody hell, where did you find that? And I'd go, I think I've only got 2 to go now, Woody. It became like a homework assignment.
Yep.
Yeah, I reckon you've got 4 of them on video somewhere, actually, haven't you?
So,
bit like Kevin Bartlett's handball. There's not too many handballs. You mentioned that you got together the Friday night before the grand final. Was that just a bit of a barbie and a get-together for everybody to calm the nerves a bit?
No, there was just the 20 players.
Yep.
20 players and the coach, yep. And, the Friday night at Bob's place at Walkerville there. And, we went in his back room out there and had our team meeting and who was doing what and who's standing who and got through all that and so on and so forth. And it was bloody good. And from memory, we never did that too often.
Yeah.
But obviously, being the first grand final we'd been in for 25 years, then Bob obviously thought it's pretty special and we need to really get focused. And we were anyway. When you got guys like Winnie and Dillo and those sort of senior players, it was good. Yep.
And afterwards, obviously relief, but just excitement. It was our first flag in 25, as we said, in 25 years. Just your memories of that night and that week, Woody.
Well, it's a long time ago, Ash.
I know that, but you know what I mean.
It's a bit hard to. Can I just tell you one little story that it will stay with me until the time I fall off the perch? Is that my father saw the 1950 grand final premiership.
Yep.
And I was 1 month old. And the next one he sees, I'm playing in it.
Yeah.
And he got down to the rooms, and which I'm glad they let him in.
Yep.
And it was just unbelievable, emotional with we're not real big huggers, the Woodcock family, but on this particular night and day, it was fantastic. And I still remember, as young as Neil Craig was, he's probably only 19 or 20.
Yeah, 19.
He came up to the two of us and hugged us, and he looked at my dad and he said, "We did it for you, Mr. Woody."
Yeah.
And I've never ever forgotten that. I've often mentioned that to Craig. He can't remember saying it, but I've never forgotten that. And then you go out and see, my two brothers played in the 60s.
Yep.
Not and hardly any success. So they were pretty emotional, like we all were. And then from memory, I think we went back to Walker's Arms or somewhere for a tea, and we didn't get back to Norwood Oval about 9. And then you were there actually on the western stand.
I was only 12, but my parents wouldn't let me go. Do you think I've still got the I'll get over that. And 1978, of all schools, Norwood High program a school camp in grand final week.
That's right.
Do you think I haven't still got a grudge over that one, Woody?
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah, that's the only Norwood flag I've never seen. Yeah.
God. Wow.
It was in the Flinders, and when we won, I got thrown in this river and got up with a scarf, holding the scarf above my head, obviously, and I do remember how freaking cold it was.
Yeah. Wow.
But getting back to the after the 75 up the club, because the Redlegs club was in full swing then.
Yeah.
Because that got built in whenever it was, 70, 71 or something. So that was in full swing, and you can imagine what that was like, packed. And I remember the crowd was, I don't know, it must have been 5,000 there in front of the Western Stand, filling half of Norwood Oval up. It was an exciting time, that's for sure.
Then we move on. So 76 a little bit disappointing, and 77, and then the build up for our centenary year in 78, where we recruited pretty heavily. The argy bargy over Brian Adamson, we eventually get him over the line, and full credit to Glenn McMahon and Wally and all that for that eventually happening, because there were plenty of times when it didn't look like it had happened. And then through we get beaten in the final. Then again, another prelim final where we beat Port. Through to the grand final. And just that day, as you know, we all 16-15 to 14-26. Any good Norwood supporter remembers that to the nth degree.
And every supporter will remind us of it.
1 point in mind, and even I still may have brought that up last Friday night.
We might not be welcome at Sturt if we keep on our way here, but hey, it's all good.
It was only banter.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, and we were lucky enough that Sturt kicked for goal terribly.
Yep.
Because they were an incredible side that year. They only lost one game against West Adelaide for the season. But, memories of that day as well, Woody, and we could probably go on for that for ages.
I still vividly remember that day, and I'll tell you why. Sure, we probably should have been 10 goal behind it, whatever. But, at three-quarter time, and as a player, you don't remember too much of what coaches say or anything like that over a period of. But to this day, actually, and I think I've talked to you about this, that rev up that Bob Hammond gave us at three-quarter time was absolutely instrumental in us getting over the line, and I won't forget it, because we were 5 goals down, just hanging around, sort of, they were helping us by their bad kicking, and I remember going into the three-quarter time, and Hamo strode out, and he just looked at all of us. He went a 360 circle, and he said, "If any guy here thinks that we cannot win this game, then F off," sort of thing.
Yep.
Oh, straight away he's got our attention. And then he went on about how fit we were. They're unfit. Look at them all with he reeled off half a dozen guys had their socks down. And he said, and I remember this, he said, when we kick the first 3 goals, not if, when we kick the first 3 goals, we'll run over the top of these bars.
Yep.
Well, out we, and then I reckon when we went out, I reckon there were 21 guys that thought we could win that.
Yep.
That's 20 players and Bob.
Yep.
And we kicked those first 3 goals. All of a sudden, game on. We're only 2 behind.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't don't remember is that we kicked 7-5 that last quarter.
Yeah, and we actually hit the front.
Home.
Yeah, we hit the front. We hit the
Yeah.
front a reasonable way out, and then we missed a couple where we could have easily gone seven, a couple of goals up, and we actually might have ended up running right away. But we did run. Yeah, we did run all over them.
Yeah, we just proved that we were pretty fit that day, and once again, I think another side probably might have been a bit complacent, and their bad kicking certainly helped us. But we everyone goes on about that, the mark that was given to Gags, but we ran over the top of that. And you mentioned before about Brian Adamson. He might have only played for us for 1.5 seasons, but wow, what a game he played! Centre forward, 5 goals, just outstanding. He was fantastic.
I reckon there's another thing there, that another part of that day which isn't really known, and we can be probably still a little bit careful about it, but a certain Sturt player may have kept Michael Kingo Taylor waiting for over an hour down on a farm as captain, and Kingo to this day still it's probably had steam out of his ears, and if there was the Jack Odie medal back then, Kingo wins it in 78 and 80 without a doubt. And Baggy didn't help himself with that big time.
No, he certainly got Kingo a bit rolled up to sort of to have a photo taken, then you've got to walk a bloody kilometre out to his tractor on the farm. Yeah, Kingo wasn't impressed. We're not impressed, and he's still dirty to this day.
And it takes a fair bit to rile Kingo too, just quietly. So
amazing.
Yes.
So can we just back up a little bit to 70?
Hang on, Mark, can I hardly hear you.
Sorry.
That's it.
Yep, got you. Can we back up a little bit to 78, where you pumped Carlton by 106 points?
What a great night that was too.
Yeah, that's
considering Carlton are coming to town this week, so I thought I'd chuck that one in. And I'm a Blues supporter, so I want to hear what you guys did to Carlton in 78.
Yeah, that was and
76.
Norwood Oval full. Yeah. Oh, that was there must have been 15,000 there on I don't know what night it was. I think it was a weeknight, actually.
Yeah, Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tuesday night. And one of the things that we did, actually, when did we, when did we put the stuff under their eyes? Is that the art of stuff?
Yeah, that was then. And
what we did with the
swap the numbers.
We changed our numbers.
Yes.
So all the forward line, 6 of us in the forward line, we all swapped our Guernseys because we knew that Carlton would just memorise. They'd go number 10, Woodcock, left footer, Well, I was wearing number.
I reckon you were 9. I reckon 9 or 11. You were either wore. I know.
I think it was 9. 9 I was wearing, I think.
Yeah.
And
brilliant
then,
tactic.
Winnie was another number, and I can't even remember the numbers now. But all 6 of us changed it, and also at the first bounce, we all 6 of us gathered at centre half forward. We didn't go to the 6 spots that you had back then. We all just gathered at centre half forward, and then when the ball was bounced, we went our separate ways. And I think the ball was we got the first centre bounce, and when he kicked the point, he should have got the goal, but that would have been a good start. But so they didn't really know what was going on for probably a quarter.
What a tactic!
Was a good boy by Bob Hammond.
I still love the commentary in that game too, where
can't hear you, missed that.
I still love the commentary in that game too, where Norwood taking it right up to Carlton, and then Neil Kearley goes, "Of course they are, they're a good side." And then when we're about 15 goals up the last quarter, Kearls just suddenly goes, "Norwood still taking it right up to Carlton."
we were 10 up at half time.
Yeah, we absolutely creamed them. And then I think the forgotten premiership to some extent at Norwood was the night premiership where we beat East Perth and all that. And David Armour, Ross Glendenning, Kelly, McCowcheck, they had Melrose. They had a very strong side, and that was a great game that night. Trevor Satwell's finest hour.
Yeah, they did have a good side, didn't they? I remember those names. Yeah, Glendenning, he was a bloody big man. Yep. Yeah, no, they were good wins against interstate side like that. Yeah. Yep.
And then we moved through to 1980 and 80 where we came through and, geez, we nearly pinched it against one of the great Port sides. Let's not forget how good that Port port side was with, Mark Williams, Greg Phillips, Tim Evans, like they had a really strong spine. And Kingo, to Russell's credit too, Russell admitted that was the biggest pants down job he ever got in his career, where Kingo was just incredible that day. And we very nearly got over the line against one of, as I said, a great port side.
If we'd had Hugo Colasanti, we would have won that.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt. He was an outstanding ruck that year, and then he sliced his finger off a week before the grand final. It work excellent. So we went in with very, very depleted ruck, and he was just had a great year, and he would have carried the rucks for us. And I've got no doubt that I reckon we would have just about won that. And I remember that 1980 was the first year that Channel 2 televised it nationally. And it was a really good game of footy too.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to 4 points, 20-minute mark of the last quarter, but it was a bloody hot day. It was about 29 degrees, and we'd come from fifth.
Yes.
So we were cooked a little bit, and they just had a bit more juice than us in the end. So, but yeah, it was a pretty good game of footy though.
And was that the first year that Neil Balmer arrived?
Yep.
Correct.
It was.
Yep. And when he arrived, we'd lost our first 5 or 6 games.
Yeah.
And we thought, oh shit, this is going to be a bloody long year. And anyway, we started to string a few together, and I think it might have been the second to last game we snuck into the 5. So we went from 5th to almost first, but not quite.
Yeah, so
that was Barmy's first year. And
we beat Torrens in the elimination. I think the first semi, and then Port in the prelim. First semi. Struggling. I'm embarrassed, Woody, on this one. Trying to remember who we beat in the first semi.
We've stumped you.
I'm not happy with myself.
We'll have to look that one up.
Yeah.
And obviously Neil Balm coming to the club there. What did he bring compared to Bobby Hammond?
Well, it was a bit. It was quite refreshing actually, because Bob's a really tough, really hard taskmaster, and you didn't get a lot of praise for Bob. You're expected to do your job and all that sort of gear. And when Barmy came, he was just so enthusiastic. Being a young 27, 28-year-old coach, he was really, really enthusiastic with the caper, and he had a lot to learn. He admitted that himself. But when he said, we'll teach you.
Glenelg in the first semi too.
But he was a fantastic bloke, and just had a incredible presence about him. But he just enjoyed the way we were playing, and he encouraged that, and he was very enthusiastic with his praise for guys, and if they did a good job, whereas Bob was a bit the opposite. So that was a refreshing sort of change of coaching style. But I think he might have been a bit on the, I won't say soft side, but a bit. He could have been a bit harder on players, and maybe a few players took a few liberties. But I think and actually know better than that, because I'd finished by 81. I think he toughened up actually and started to be a bit harder on players and get the best out of them. Mind you, he loved to give a serve. I got on the end of one of his sprays half time, that's for sure.
Barmy admits that himself. And I said, I've spoken about it at length with him, and he said, yeah, but, that was me. My strength was probably my weakness as well. So Barmy was always very open and honest about that.
That's human nature
too,
that when you come into a new environment, you don't want to upset too many people too soon. But once you start to get into it a bit, then you can let rip, as you said.
Yeah. No, he was... And as you know, he knows him better than me. He was just a terrific bloke, and every time he just loves Norwood.
Yes.
He can't wait to get back. When he comes back to Adelaide, he just loves getting out to Norwood. And it's great to see him. No, we've seen him a few times actually over the last couple of years with Hall of Fame stuff. When he got inducted in the Hall of Fame and all that, he was just gobsmacked.
Oh, he's very firm in pointing out that Norwood's is his club. Even
spiritual home.
Yeah, even interviewing him in Melbourne with the Adelaide Uni function a few weeks ago, and he had Richmond faithful there. They were sort of a few of them were a bit dumbfounded. Said one of the guys came up and said, "Geez, I didn't realise he had such a connection to Norwood and that." And I thought that was quite an interesting comment coming from a Richmond fanatic, that he'd actually picked it up. That there I am, probably knowing obviously Barmy's. And he'd heard Barmy and spoken about it at length with him over the years, and to hear someone else go, and I thought, geez, Barmy, So he is firm. And then let's go to 81. Look, one of my favourite memories is you kicking your 600th goal and Billy Cochran shaking your hand. I thought it was great sportsmanship as you'd taken the mark in front of him at the parade end. You were actually at full forward virtually at that stage, Woody. One of the very few times in your career.
Yeah, mind you, I got dropped the following week.
Yeah, but we won't mention that. But yeah, I just thought it was great. You kicked your 600th, the roar from the crowd. You can tell you were emotional about it on the ground too, and so you bloody should have been. It is one of the great highlights as a Norwood man. And let's not forget, we will come back to that. We do have an end called the Roger Woodcock end at Nord Oval, and I don't think you can get too big a compliments more than that, and I know how much that means to you, Woody, and the Woodcock family.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was pretty blown away a few years ago when the president and the board sort of bestowed that upon me, and I just didn't think I deserved that or was worthy of that. But I was very humbled by it, and I was very shocked by it. There's no doubt about that. And going on with that, actually, I've been trying to lobby to the club that the northern end, the southern end, should be named the Bruce Schultz end, because he's the greatest kicker in the Norwood Footy Club, and obviously, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Last year. So, and I know that James Fantasia is keen to sort of do that. I mean, there's so much happening at the moment. But I'm sure that will happen, that the southern end will be the Bruce Schultz end. So you'll have the two biggest goal kickers in the Norwood Footy Club, whose ends are named after them.
So it should be.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe I might be wrong, but I don't think 600 goals is going to be, and Bruce kicked 669. I don't think that's going to be in today's modern SANFL footy. The guys aren't going to last long enough.
No way in the world. I reckon you're very safe. I reckon you are very safe with that one, Woody.
And if someone does that, well, that's fantastic. But I think in today's footy, I think it's those two goal kicking records will probably stay at Norwood, I would think. But so I'm really hoping that the club, and I'm sure they will eventually get round to it and do the Bruce Schultz end at the southern end.
Were you happy to get your 600th at the parade?
Oh yeah, definitely. I didn't think, because I must admit I was struggling that final year. I had a bit of injury, a bit of illness, couldn't get a kick. And I was on the bench that day that was the second last minor round game of 81. I was on the bench and I got on, and luckily I kicked that goal. And then I got dropped to my final game in 81 of the minor round was in the in reserves against Port down at Footy Park.
Yep.
So I sat up there watching the game, and I think the boys got up. But Peter Lachlan rolled his ankle.
Yes, anyway, that's right. I was trying to think who got injured. Yep.
And I didn't think too much of that. I thought, well, my career's, because I was sort of probably going to give it away at the end of 81. And, he rolled his ankle. I didn't think too much about it. Anyway, I thought, well, I played my last game for the club in the twos, unfortunately. Anyway, Sunday night, Barmy rings me up and said, you're going to be in the league side on Saturday against Westies.
Yep.
Oh shit! Well, on the bench, he said, no, I'm going to play you in the starting 18 because of your finals experience. So, I played 24 finals or something. Yep. So he's given me a rev up. I trained the house down on the end of the week, and I remember this. I think I kicked one goal through the first quarter, and I hit the post. I thought, I'll snag a few today, and that'll put the pressure on the selectors, because we were going to win by 10, which we did. Anyway, I snapped the cruciate in the second quarter, and game over.
Yeah, right in front of the scoreboard.
And career over. But that's footy. And, and I remember sitting up there watching the boys in the 81 preliminary final playing against Glenelg when the wind changed. Yeah. And the Bays had it for 3 quarters, because they go on and play Port Adelaide in the grand final.
And Woody, you've always been a part of Norwood Footy Club since you've retired as well. You've been on past player committee and now a big part of the history committee. always appreciate the photos you send through very quickly when I am writing an article. And that, go through you just to inform people of your involvement and probably explains a bit more your huge Norwood connection.
With the history group?
Yeah, and just, I'm
just losing you a bit there. I think, look, we started the history group, and Michael Colling was the big instigator of it. And he went to Wally Miller, and Wally sort of got the committee up and running. And so that was about 2010 from memory, something like that. And, I think Michael asked me in probably that year, but we had about a half a dozen that started the history group committee, which Wally was really, really wrapped in to try and keep all the memorabilia and everything like that goes in with organise a history group. And we preserved a lot of the stuff. And so that was 2010. And we've just grown, as you well know, actually into probably one of the best history groups of the SANFL.
Yep.
And I think our website would be the best history website in the SANFL.
Oh, keep going, not just SANFL. Keep going, Woody, on that one.
Hang on, I can hardly hear you, mate.
Keep going, not just SANFL, Woody. Luke Reynolds, who I've got a lot of time for, he's a big Collingwood man. But don't hold that against him. But he's very firm that the Norwood site is the best footy site in Australia. And there are, people around the traps do enforce that. Real footy people say how good, and full credit to you guys of how good the site is. There's plenty of people around who consider the Norwood website the best football website in the country. So it's something all you guys on the history committee, Winton, Walshy, et cetera, you guys should be immensely proud of.
Yeah, we are. I mean, that website that we developed about 5 or 6 years ago, and a lot of credit to Anthony Harvey.
Yeah, Sir Anthony Harvey was fantastic.
97 premiership side, and that's his go. And when we went and saw him, and he put all this together, and it's just grown and grown and grown with all the information. Like we've got 1,500 guys have played league footy for Norwood, and we've got photos for about 1,400 of them.
Yeah, and
I reckon we've got profiles for about nearly 1,000 footballers that the guys have done work on research and all that sort of gear. So it's a significant, piece of work, and it's getting better. And we're starting to put some action photos in. And now this is all, as you know, actually leading up to hopefully getting a museum and getting some of our memorabilia out on display. And that's happening as we speak now. We're trying to develop a sort of a small type museum under the Western Stand.
Yes. And
that'll be a forerunner to when, and hopefully the club acquire the RSL as a big cultural and learning centre, and a bigger museum will be developed in there. So that's the plans of James Fantasia and the board. So stay tuned in the next probably couple of years, and that'll work out hopefully.
That'll be fantastic.
So should be good.
Now, did I read somewhere that you're a keen cricketer as well?
Electric light cricketer, one of the famous names in South Australia in electric light cricket. Woody?
And I reckon I think it finished in about 2005. So I had 45 years playing electric light cricket, and that was huge back in the 70s. And then it sort of fell away when indoor cricket came in.
Yeah.
Public liability insurance came in, and young kids they were more interested in bowling overarm with a harder ball than bowling underarm with a tennis ball that electric light cricket had. So, but they were good fun. And, but, we couldn't get any young kids involved. So eventually we couldn't get teams, and eventually there weren't enough teams to make it viable to continue in the early 2000s.
Did I also read that a famous sportsman who we've actually interviewed on this show, Mr. 159, participated in that series?
Wayne Phillips certainly played a lot of electric light cricket. Talking about Flipper, played electric light cricket. It was a big part of it. Woody, now you're played golf at Tea Tree Gully?
Yep. Yeah, I've been a member up there nearly 50 years. That shows how old I'm getting. And that's a passion of mine. I used to get a bit angry and a bit frustrated, like every golfer does, but I must be getting mature now, mate. I don't get as angry anymore because I just realise I'm a 15 handicapper, and that'll do me. I've got to play 15 or 20 bad shots around. I've got to accept it. I couldn't accept it 20 years ago.
Fair enough.
Now, Woody, you're one of the South Australian greats, the leading half-forward flanker in South Australian footy history. Absolute privilege to have you on the show tonight, Woody, and all the best. And I've got a feeling that the scoreboard this weekend may be barracking for James Ace just a tad.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I've enjoyed it, boys, and thanks for the invite, and we'll catch you around at the club, actually. No worries.
Definitely. Thanks, Woody.
Thank you.
Okay. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.
We've just been speaking to Roger Woodcock, and that period through the mid-70s was not only a bouncing around time for him, but the Norwood Footy Club really rose from the ashes and scored a very, very good win.
And just wrapped to have Woody on the show. The smooth skills, beautiful kick onto that left foot, or the textbook kick. Might have been where Woody actually stands reasonably close to the scoreboard, and we may yell out as someone misses a goal, get Woodcock on, and get him out of the wheelchair and out there to kick the goal.
Yep.
But yeah, and look, a huge amount of respect for Woody as a person as well.
Absolutely.
He's still heavily involved at Norwood on the history committee and past players wise and all that thing. He's a great football SANFL man.
Absolutely, and we did touch on that during the interview that he is involved with the history committee, and rightly so, that it's starting to get the accolades not only from here within South Australia, but there's other states that are taking notice of what Norwood are doing with their the history committee.
Yeah, and the Redlegs Museum, and Woody mentioned Anthony Harvey's influence, Sir Anthony, the captain from 97 when Macca was suspended, and Harv's been great with that and set a lot of things up. And it is, as Luke Reynolds, the great man, refers to it, it's a lesson for every other club. And he's a big Collingwood man, and he goes on the Norwood site just because he thinks it's a great site.
Yep.
And enjoys looking through things.
Someone that supports the black and white doesn't mind a bit of red and blue. That's unusual.
He may be a little bit of influence this way.
But we thank him for listening, of course, and giving some feedback as we post our episodes as well. All right, mate, let's move on to Happy Days.
Happy Days.
We wish a happy birthday to Josh Rochelle, Adelaide star forward, current star forward at the moment, drafted in 2022, played 13 games in his first year, including 17 goals, kicked 5 against Freo in round 1. Welcome to the AFL, young Josh.
Yeah, and him and, he's forming a pretty lethal partnership
him
with
and
Rankin
Rankin.
together. And Tex's influence showing him where to go and all that. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, look, he's got a lot to offer.
Rochelle and Rankin, I think that's going to be two peas in a pod for a long, long time for the Crows. And, gee, aren't they combining well at the moment? And every time you see them out and about, they're together. And whenever you see them, walking out of the club, they're together. So it's certainly forming some strong bonds there. But we did mention a little bit earlier on that his stats for 2023 are starting to eclipse his 22 stats already after 4 or 5 games that he's up there.
Yeah, his body let him down a bit last year. So probably that real another pre-season. There's a few of the North staff are big on Soligo as well. Now, I think Soligo was more than lucky to be playing this next game.
Yep.
Where I thought Michael Christian chose the soft option in terms of, and the way the wording's done on that, it doesn't really cover deliberate touching of an umpire. There's a bit of a slip through the crack there, and I'm sure they'll tighten
that up a little bit.
And let's just say I know there's some umpires who aren't happy with that he's just received a fine. So I think, yes, of course we know it wasn't demonstrative and all that, but Since Adam and Eve have been sharing apples, you can't touch an umpire.
Absolutely.
So, I think he is lucky.
I did see another one that had the umpire behind the goals, and the backmen were actually almost pushing the umpire out of the way. So, yeah, that's going to be very interesting.
You've got to be careful.
Absolutely. All right, we move on. 2002 golf, the 66th US Masters tournament at Augusta National. Tiger Woods becomes the third player to claim back-to-back Masters, 3 strokes ahead of Retief Goosen of South Africa.
There was certainly that patch and time there where he was unreal, and we all thought he's just going to rewrite every single golf record in history, and then his off course record and
sort of messed him up a little bit. Yes. Messed up those records for sure. Obviously playing this week, but had to pull out after second round, I think it was. Just struggling to walk the course, obviously up and down as well. So, but yeah, you're right. He was an absolute star during that time. All right, we move on. 2013. We're sticking with the golf because obviously the golf was quite topical this week. The 77th US Masters, obviously at Augusta. Adam Scott wins his first major title and becomes the first Australian Masters champion with a 2-hole sudden death playoff against Angel Cabrera.
I admit, Augusta's easily my favourite golf tournament. I think it's the history. I love the broadcast. I love the commentating with it. The water, the course. It's the one golf tournament where I've got no qualms at getting up at 4:00 in the morning to watch. So yeah.
Do you put that on your? I mean, you're going to say yes to this, but do you put that on your all-time bucket list of stadiums to visit, or sporting venues to visit?
Possibly, probably Lords in front.
Well, that's Lords. This is what I was going to lead into. What would be in your list if you had to choose a couple of that you definitely wanted to go to?
Lords, Manchester with cricket grounds. Loftus Road as a QPR man with soccer. I admit that.
Yep.
But Augusta in terms of it's certainly.
I think it's the home of golf. Really, you really think about. That's why I was nearly going to say Lords, and you led me to it. For me, it would have to be certainly Lords, Wimbledon, Augusta. I have been to Fenway Park. Absolutely love the Red Sox, and that was just a dream come true. Chelsea would be fantastic to go to. So, yeah, there's certainly a few grounds out there, and we might actually put a post up on our Facebook page this week and see if we can get some interaction there from some of our listeners to some of your favourite grounds that you'd like to visit.
Yeah.
So we might do that. All right, we move on. Cricket 1986. Viv Richards, a century off 56 balls against England.
Yeah, look, Richards and Gilchrist were probably the two in terms of
Master Blasters.
Yeah, bashing absolute, demoralising and bashing crap out of the opposition. And, of course, the famous story of Viv in a county game playing and missing, the bowler, this, can't you see it and all that. Plays and misses again and tells him it's red and that. And then he hits the next ball out of the ground and Viv turned, well, you know what it looks like, go fetch it.
I like that story. That's an absolute beauty. We'll save that one for later. And we finish off with basketball. The NBA playoffs or play-ins at the moment are gearing up in the US. The Los Angeles Clippers overcome an NBA record of a 31-point deficit to score an improbable 135 to 131 Game 2 playoff victory over the Golden State Warriors in Oakland. Shooting guard Lou Williams with 36 points.
Yeah, it just...
Isn't it amazing that we talked about it a couple of weeks ago with some of the footy stuff that teams can get on such a roll that, they can come back from huge deficits. And is it a case of almost not trying as hard to score and all of a sudden things just start to flow?
Yeah, it can work that way sometimes. It's just
we talked about with Roger Woodcock the Sturt Grand Final where Sturt inaccuracy let Norwood into it. We're seeing that in the AFL a little bit this year, that teams that are not putting teams away early, that are just keeping them in it, are getting burnt on the turnaround. It's just amazing how teams can do that. All right, let's scoot into the extra time big finish.
Yep.
Extra time. Big finish.
All right, mate, I've left concussion on the agenda only because of the tribunal this week. Once again, we had Harry McKay with the bump, push, arms protecting against Harry Sheasel. Very, very interesting that it's a silly decision that's going to cost players games. Then we had the Monday game between Geelong and Hawthorn where there were two perceived sling tackles.
Yeah, I can't work out of that one.
Yeah, one was 2 and one was 1.
Yeah, and I would have thought they both should have been 2.
Yep.
I can't work out how Christian graded Geelong players slightly.
Rowan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gary Rowan. How he graded that slightly less had me blow because it looked really the other way around.
Yeah, the tackling motion, he was almost lifted off the ground and his momentum carried him obviously around. The other one was a little bit more, the arms were pinned, whereas Rowan's one, the Hawthorn player got his arm out. So, again, it gets down to that grading.
Yeah.
Is it on overall what happens to the player afterwards or not?
I
and
admit,
this is why I've left it on the run sheet because it's even I'm scratching my head a little bit.
I can't believe Geelong are going to the tribunal. That stuns me. For me, that was start the car, and accept the one game.
Get out of here as quickly as we can.
Will Day, I understand why Hawthorn are challenging that, trying to get it downgraded from 2 to 1.
Yep.
But I don't get why Gary Rowan's one's been challenged whatsoever. That's flabbergasting for me. And I'd love that. That's where now it changed, where you used to get the extra game. This is one where, in my book, they should get another game for being so stupid to challenge it.
Absolutely. Are we seeing this happen because we're almost going through a generation of players that are getting out of that tackling mode? I mean, I remember when I used to play football, it was always tackle and drop the knees, whereas it seems like these days it's tackle and turn the player. And
you've got to be careful in then turning. I think Luke Pedler was very unlucky to get a game the week before. And Adelaide were absolute idiots to challenge McAdam, where McAdam deserved the 3 games.
They lost the currency.
If you bothered to lose the guidelines, and I look forward to running into a couple of people from Adelaide, and I won't
hold back
with that they were dumb on that, where Pedler was the one they should have appealed. Where
they lost a little bit of currency with the McAdam one, didn't they?
Really dumb.
Absolutely. All right, cricket, mate, coming out tonight. Emerging left-arm quick, Spencer Johnson has signed a 3-year extension with the Redbacks.
Look, I'll be honest, I did find that out a couple of weeks ago that at the just before, because he wasn't allowed to play the district semi before he went to New Zealand for the Australia A bit, so I did know that.
We had to hold fire on that one, didn't we? Yep.
Yeah, that day. But it's great news for South Australia. Look,
and Queensland were offering the same 3-year contract, so that's a big tick.
Yeah, and look, I absolutely wrapped. I admit, if I'd been, I would have loved to have gone and played at the Gabba, but the Gabba being redeveloped, as Hags did point out, Mark Harrity pointed out to me, so he'd be bowling on Allan Borderfield, so it's not quite the enticement as what we all immediately thought.
Yep.
So
my first thoughts were, without knowing, obviously, the redevelopment, I hadn't taken that into account, but I thought that maybe Dizzy might have, sort of been mentoring him a little bit, obviously, from the fast bowling point of view.
No.
From an Australian trying to promote him.
I think more Mark Harrity.
Yep.
As his coach at West Torrens has done a lot more.
Yep.
Done a lot more there.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm wrapped. I'm wrapped that he stayed, but I am a little bit surprised. But I do think if the Gabba wasn't being redeveloped, then it may have been different. So But yeah, look,
interesting.
Great result for South Australian cricket.
We need all the not the help we can get, but all the positives that we can get with these young players, and obviously keeping them in SA. All right, mate. A little bit of a divisive topic tonight: the Victorian price, the price that Victoria paid for Shane Warne's state funeral.
Yeah, look, for mine, that's got a bit of a bad taste for even coming out.
Yep. So $1.8 million, I think, was paid to Eddie Maguire's media company for the production of that. I'm staggered that this has actually made it to the press.
Yeah, as I said.
Hence the reason why I put it on the run sheet, because I'm absolutely staggered.
Yeah.
Because great of the game.
Yeah, I just think, hang on, that he's one of the all-time greats. That shouldn't be. Why are we debating that? You can sit there and say, so therefore are we now going to say, well, why are Maguire's company charging that much if you're going to go to that extent? Let's leave it alone.
Absolutely. I think it's not a good look, obviously, for the state of Victoria that they're arcing up. Yes, all right.
And his family doesn't need that.
No, it's a big amount of money. I understand that, especially with cost of living and rate rises and et cetera, but at the end of the day, you've got an Australian player who's done his country proud. If they win a gold medal, they generally given a ticker tape parade. So, and I'm sure that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to shut down streets and have police and all of that. So I think you've got to, I can't believe that this actually came out.
Yeah, for mine, it just, I don't think it helps anyone.
No, agreed. All right, mate, and we finish off tonight with a little bit of lawn bowls news. I this came over the airways today, so this one's all on me.
Yes. I can assure you I won't be giving any input here, mate.
We have some South Australians that are doing some really good things for the potential emerging Jackaroos, which is some younger players here in SA that are making waves, obviously, through Bowls Australia. There's an emerging Jackaroos squad that is going to be playing against each other in a 4-tier system. And we have 3 players that have been selected in that for SA. We got Tyson Wilson from the Grange Bowling Club. We got Nathan Black from the Grange Bowling Club, and Grace Maloney. And Grace actually plays out in the country as well. So that is a big tick. I did play against Grace for Super League in a grand final a season ago. And she's a gun little player as well. And Tyson and Nathan I know quite well, obviously, through playing Premier League this year. Good luck to them, and we just wanted to make mention that some young South Australians are actually doing some stuff on the national stage, and they've been selected in that squad.
Yeah, no, good news, and all the best, well and truly.
Absolutely. All right, we've finished a huge episode, mate. As per usual, we promise to do better, and for everyone out there, enjoy the gather round. We've got a bit of a gather round of podcast episodes coming out in the next few days, so enjoy them and enjoy the gather round, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, mate.
In this crazy world we live in, we all need the distraction. Enjoying the show? Like, rate, and subscribe. Hook up and connect with us on social media at Sportscast SA. We'll see you next time on Game On.